恭敬大德善定，为此发挥，自一切众生，亲传妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊胜无生。Build the Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati san miao san puto che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome to this week's lecture. This is lecture number 157. What you see on your screen is a huge tree that is a picture that I took many years ago when I visited Borobudur. I don't know if the town is called Borobudur, but it's very near the ancient temple of Borobudur. Okay. All right, well, I'm getting my slides. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, wait, I have a question. Clifford, were you at Ten Pian today? Or yesterday? I think today or yesterday. Clifford, are you there? Okay, anyway, I saw someone, I thought looks like him. All right, let me see. Okay, so today we start with a question. This was from Shofu in Words of Wisdom. Shofu said, "Don't wait until old age to cultivate the way. The lonely graves all house young people." So, Ron, what was your question, Ron, on this?
Yes, let me put on my earphones here so I can speak for you clearly. Hold on one second. My question was the last phrase in there, the lonely graves all house young people. What does that mean?
Okay. That means a lot of people die young. That means there are many graves, and in those graves, they are the graves of people who don't live to how you say, they die young. Yeah, either at any age, before the prime of their life, or before they just die young.
How's that tied to the first sentence? Don't wait until old age to.
Oh, that means you
That's why I
don't.
get confused.
Oh, you don't know when your time is coming up.
Right.
Yeah, so don't waste time, because there are many people who die young. And in other words, death comes unexpectedly. You only know the time of your death if you have reached a certain level in your practice. Until then, you never know when would be your last breath. Actually, there's a sutra where the Buddha asked the monks, he said, "How do you contemplate death, dying?" And then one monk said that, I contemplate that maybe I might die next year. And the Buddha said, "Wrong." And then, okay, I'm paraphrasing, okay, and the Buddha said, "Nah, wrong." And then another monk said, "I contemplate death as in nearby, like, I might die in a few months' time." The monk probably thinks he will fall sick first and then die. The strength will, when you feel something wrong with your body. And the Buddha said, "Wrong." Then next, so then another monk answered. So they answer in terms of the time that they think that their time is, the way they perceive death gets nearer and nearer. And then one person says that the way I contemplate death is when I go to sleep, I may not wake up. I think that I may not wake up. The Buddha said, "Wrong." Still wrong, close, but still wrong. And then it goes closer and closer. I can't remember the specifics until the one monk says that in the time it takes to take a breath, that means either you breathe in or you breathe out. To the monk, he may not be alive after that. And the Buddha says, "Yes, you're right." In other words, always contemplate death as being very close. Yeah. And that's how you should spur yourself on in terms of your practice. Don't waste time. All right? Okay. Now, moving on, we are continuing our story of Sada Prarudita, which I shall henceforth refer to as the Bodhisattva, because it's a lot easier to pronounce the Bodhisattva. Okay, so where we left off last week is that the Bodhisattva heard the sound of the Buddhas from thin air, from the air, and the Buddhas were saying, he said, "The Bodhisattva Dharmogata." This Bodhisattva Dharmagata is who our Bodhisattva Sada Prarudita is looking for. Is his teacher or future teacher. So the Buddhas are explaining to him, "Oh, I'm having a sweet in my mouth, so I apologize. But it's helping me suppress any tendency to cough. Yeah, so it's a necessary evil." So the Buddhas are explaining to a Bodhisattva. He says this Bodhisattva Dharma Gata has for a long time matured you for the supreme enlightenment. He has upheld you. He has been your preceptor in perfect wisdom, in skill in means, and in the dharmas of a Buddha. It was he who has upheld you, and for that friendly deed, you must honor him in gratitude and thankfulness, and you must bear in mind what he has done for you. If son of a good family, you should for 1 eon or for 2 eons or for up to 100,000 eons or more, carry about the Bodhisattva Dharmagota like a turban on your head, would furnish him with everything that make beings happy. And, so this is where we stopped last week, all right? And will present him with as many forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and touchables. These are objects of the 5 senses, as they are in the great trichilocosm. Great trichilocosm means in one Buddha land. In one Buddha land, there are, I think, a billion Jambudvipas. So one Buddha land is actually very huge, the scope of one Buddha. So it says, even then, you would not have repaid that son of good family for what he has done for you. For it has happened through his might that you have acquired these concentrations or samadhis, that you have heard of the perfection of wisdom and of skill in means, and that you have gained the perfection of wisdom. After the Tathagatas had comforted the Bodhisattva, they again disappeared. But the Bodhisattva emerged from his concentrations and asked himself, whence have those Tathagatas come, and whither have they gone? All right. So our Bodhisattva has heard in his concentration a group or a pantheon of Buddhas coming to exhort him and to give him advice. Now, after his concentration, he is not sure. Okay, could it be his imagination? There are various ways that I use to understand why he has this question. He says, where have those Tathagatas come from and where have they gone? Were they from his mind? Were they truly Buddhas who have come? But how did they come and where did they go? Like, from that perspective, he's asking what is the nature of the Buddha. Okay, he could be asking that. Or he could be contemplating, was it all just a figment of his imagination? Was it all coming only from his mind and it wasn't real? He's not sure. Okay, then he says, since he could no longer see those Buddhas, he was worried and pined away for them. When I've come to Bodhisattva Dharmagata, I must ask him about this matter, ask him to explain when those Tathagatas have come and whither they have gone. All right. Then the Bodhisattva thereupon nursed affection and confidence, esteem and respect for the Bodhisattva Dharmagata. He then reflected, with what kind of honoring gift could I now approach the Bodhisattva Dharmagata? Okay, if you're wondering why am I sharing this story, well, it has to do with declaration of truth. And in part of the declaration of truth is that when you, sometimes in the sutras, the bodhisattvas are willing to give up their body, they sacrifice their body. And because of a declaration of truth, they, their bodies heal. Yeah, miraculously heal. So this is why. Okay, he says, but but I am poor. I have nothing of any value with which I could express my respect and reverence for him. It would not be seemly for me to come without anything at all, and that now makes me sad and regretful. What is this like? Well, for some people, when you visit someone's house, it is, for not everyone thinks the same way, but for some people, the way they are brought up by their parents, it would be very rude to go to someone's house empty-handed. You have to buy something. You have to come with a gift, a small token. is kind of like that. He's going to see his teacher. He's going to learn the Dharma from his teacher. And he realizes that, and it's a very natural, it's not, how you say, it's not out of obligation or social custom, but it's something from, it's a very pure feeling from your heart that you want to do for your teacher. And why? Okay, all right, let me share this. Since it's the Earth Store session, both at Tempian as well as at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, let me share this with you. This is Shufu's commentary on the Earth Store Bodhisattva Sutra. So this section, Shufu says, he says, you see, as the Brahman woman on the causal ground, even Earth Store Bodhisattva was helpless and could only weep to the Buddha to save her mother from the paths of knives, of blood, and of fire, as well as those of the three states of woe. This is the part in the sutra where the woman, the Earth Store Bodhisattva in his past life, he was a daughter, and his mother had passed away, and she was very worried. She says, when my mother was around, she didn't really practice really well, and so she was concerned about where the mother would end up. So Shufu says, he says, now in turn, you should all be aware that if it were not for the great vows of Earth Store Bodhisattva, we might very well be undergoing retributions in the hells, tormented among the hungry ghosts or suffering among the animals. The reason that we have become humans is that Earth Store Bodhisattva made vows to rescue us. Since, since we have not yet achieved the penetration of past lives, however, we do not realize the good fortune we have derived from him, how much merciful and compassionate aid we have received. If he had not made his vows, we will all be in great danger. Consequently, we should always remember to repay his kindness. There you go. This says how we have read our Bodhisattva, having the Buddhas explain to him how his future teacher, the one he's going to meet, has been helping him all along. He just doesn't know it. Here we are in the same position. Shufu is explaining to us how Tijang Pusat, Earth Store Bodhisattva, has been helping us for a long time. And we will only know when we have enough Kung Fu and we are able to see into our past lives. Then Shufu says, then we will know. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let me get back to the text. Excuse me. Hold on. Let me get some cough syrup. All right. Now, where's my mouse? Okay. It says, such were the feelings, such was the attitude of reverence with which the Bodhisattva proceeded on his journey. In due course, he reached a town, went to the midst of the marketplace, and decided that he would sell his own body. For through the long night of the past, in the measureless cycle of birth and death, thousands of bodies of mine have been shattered, wasted, destroyed, and sold again and again. I have experienced measureless pains in the hells for the sake of sense pleasures, as a result of sense pleasures, but never yet on behalf of dharmas of this kind. What dharmas? Well, the perfection of wisdom. Never yet for the purpose of doing honor to beings of such a kind. All right. So it says he has wasted thousands of bodies on frivolous things, but never has he done it for the sake of the Dharma. All right. Now then he says, what else can I do with this body which is of necessity doomed to impermanence? Better surely that this body should be destroyed by such an action rather than by an ineffectual one. That means a useless endeavor. For the sake of sense pleasures, as a result of sense pleasures, many thousands bodies of mine have again and again, while I wandered in birth and death, been broken up, but never in conditions as favorable as this, never for the sake of gaining the Dharma. If they must once more be broken up, let them in any case be broken up for a proper cause. See his logic? All right, what kind of logic is this? Well, it's kind of like you have a car, all right? You have a car, but it's a totally useless car, totally lousy, breaking down, missing a tire, undrivable. Basically, it's a death trap. Okay, so you have a car that you don't dare drive. It's because of impermanence, the car is breaking down. And then suddenly you have this opportunity where you are told, if you give this car away, you donate this car, all right? In exchange, you will get the best car in the world. It's like that, all right? However, okay, most people who don't understand cause and effect and who have not developed enough wisdom and who have not brought forth their Bodhi resolve, and they don't understand the Bodhisattva path. What happens is you are very attached to our broken down cars. We are very attached to our bodies. So we know that our body is going to betray us. We know our body is going to decay. That is, even if we have a long enough life for our body to decay. Because as Ron's question about the verse is, many people don't have a natural long life. Death comes unexpectedly. So we get attached to our bodies. And instead of using the Bodhisattva's logic, this body is going to decay anyway, but if you give it up now for a noble cause, your return will be far greater. We are unable to see that. So that's why it's very hard to progress in our practice. So it's like someone comes to a person who's really stupid, and they tell the person, hey, you only have $10, right? But if you give me your $10, I guarantee you tomorrow I will give you $10,000 in return. It is very hard to believe. It is very, very hard to believe. And if a person's view is very short term, they only think about today and they don't think about tomorrow, all they can think about is, well, if I give you my $10 now, I'm going to lose out because I'm not going to have $10 anymore. And who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. That's our view. That's the view of ignorance. We don't understand what's going on. So instead of giving up the $10 in exchange for a future 10,000 or uncountable blessings, we get attached to the $10 and we hold on to the $10 like our lives depend on it. So we are the total opposite of Bodhisattva logic. All right, you all got that? Okay, now coming back to our Bodhisattva, it says, he then went to the middle of the marketplace, lifted up his voice and cried, who wants a man? Who wants a man? Who wants to buy a man? Okay, now, usually, all right, according to the sutras and the Jataka tales that the Buddha gave us, when someone makes a very heroic deed, sometimes Mara will come to test him, or sometimes Chakra will come to test. It said that when you make a very strong declaration, not the declaration of truth in this sense, but like for example, when the Buddha in his past life was a rabbit, he also wanted to give up his life as an offering to a mendicant because he had nothing. He said, I'm a rabbit, what do I have? The only thing I have is grass. And I can't give grass to a left-home person. So he said, I'll give up my body instead. Now, when you think like that, all right, it is said that Chakra's throne in the heaven will grow warm and Chakra will become very intrigued. He said, what's going on? Why is my chair, my throne getting hot? And then he'll find out, and then he might come to test. And okay, so in this case now, first of all, it is Mara, and Mara said, let's obstruct this Bodhisattva, because if he succeeds in selling himself, and then he can go on to honor the Bodhisattva Dhammogata, and then he can ask the his teacher with regard to the perfection of wisdom and to skill in means, how a bodhisattva causing in perfect wisdom may quickly achieve full enlightenment, then he is bound to reach the ocean of sacred knowledge. In other words, from Mara's perspective, shall become inaccessible to Mara and his hosts. All right, you get that? Mara can only influence you through the 6 senses, through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. All right, but once, if you are like Guanyin and you illuminate the 5 skandhas, which includes the 6 senses, and you become independent of the skandhas, you also become free of any influence Mara can do to you. Mara has totally no power over you anymore because you are in the domain that's outside even of Mara's influence. All right. So that's what Mara is trying to say. And then he says the Bodhisattva will reach the perfection of all qualities, after which he will work the will of all beings, meaning he can help living beings, and take them away from my sphere. And others again he will take away after he has known full enlightenment. So Mara doesn't want anyone to be outside of his influence. So Mara, the evil one, thereupon so disposed the Brahmins and householders in the towns so that they could not hear the voice of the Bodhisattva. So Mara put a spell. No one could hear what the Bodhisattva was selling, which was himself. So when the Bodhisattva could not find a buyer for himself, he went to one side, wailed, shed tears. Okay, his name, right? Sadaprarudita means one who constantly cries. So when did he cry? Last week we found out he was crying when the Buddhas told him to go east, but they didn't tell him. They didn't give him specific direction. So he went east. Then he realized he doesn't know how far to go, and he stood at the corner of the road for 1 week, constantly crying, right? And then now he's crying again. Therefore, his name, Sadaprarudita. As he's saying, he says, alas, it is hard on us that we do not find a buyer even for our body, so that we could, after selling our body, honor the Bodhisattva Dhammogata. So the one who constantly cries. Thereupon, Shakra, chief of gods, okay, now Shakra enters the picture. Shakra is the king of the heaven of the 33, okay, Lord Shakra. So he says, let me weigh up the Bodhisattva. Will he now, filled with earnest intention, renounce his body out of concern for Dharma, or will he not? So actually, there's a lot of credit to be given to this one who constantly cries, because not only has he attracted the attention of Mara, right, but he also attracts the attention of Shakra. So Shakra then conjured up the guise of a young man. He went in disguise and said to the Bodhisattva, says, why do you stand there dejected, pining away and shedding tears? So then the Bodhisattva explains, and then he asks, why do you want to sell yourself? It's a long story, so I'm not going to read every word. Then he says, oh, for the love of Dharma. He wants to sell himself so that he can be respectful to his teacher, but he cannot find a buyer. So he said, I must have very little merit since I can't even sell myself. Then the young man, which is Shakra in disguise, said, okay, I myself have no need of a man, but my father is due to offer sacrifice. For that I require a man's heart, his blood and the marrow of his bones. Those you may give me and I shall pay for them. And what did the Bodhisattva think? He says he thinks that he has got a bargain. He says, I have exceedingly easily got what I desired. Then, with his mind bristling with joy, not normal, right? This Bodhisattva, he agreed. He says, when the young man asked his price, he says, give me whatever you will. He didn't even care about the price he was going to get. As long as he get something. So he took a sharp sword, pierced his right arm, and made the blood flow. Then he cut his flesh. And then he went to the wall because he wanted to break his bone to get the marrow. And at this point, there was a lady, a merchant's daughter, from upstairs, one of the buildings, saw this and said, like, what is this person trying to do to himself? Right? So she went to him and asked him what was going on. All right. So the daughter said, What is the kind of quality? What is the excellence of the qualities which you will create in yourself by your wish to honor the Bodhisattva Dhammogata after you have sold your own heart, blood, and marrow? In other words, what's in it for you? All right. So he says, well, he's going to explain the perfection of wisdom and skill it means. Then, with this knowledge, he will train himself. It means he will practice. Then he can become a refuge to all beings. Wow, isn't that noble? Right? That means refuge to all beings means all beings, when they need safety, when they need wisdom, when they need direction, clarity, confidence, when they need their fear to be taken away, they will go to him. It says, after I have known full enlightenment, I shall acquire a body of golden color. That means you'll become a Buddha. 32 marks of the Superman, the 80 accessory marks, the splendor of a halo, the rays of which extend in infinitude, the great friendliness, then it goes on and on, the great compassion, the great sympathetic joy, impartiality, self-confidence, etc., etc., etc. And then he says, I shall fully awake to the supreme condition of a Buddha. So that's his goal. That's his aim. Once he learns of the perfection of wisdom, his next step is to become a Buddha. All right? And then, but he's not doing it for himself. Look at the last line. He says, acquire the supremely precious jewel of the Dharma, which I shall share with all beings. All right? So when you become a Buddha, you have all these powers. What are you going to do with all these powers? Share the Dharma with all beings. So, last week I mentioned why I'm sharing this story. Mahayana stories. Okay, so if you look at the Theravada Sutras, Theravada Sutras are quite straightforward. It's very instructional. Not all of them. Okay, I'm just generalizing. But one contrast with the Mahayana Sutras is that a lot of Mahayana Sutras are very inspiring. They speak to the heart. They already assume you know how to practice. And then when you know how to practice, the Mahayana stories are there to inspire you to take your practice to greater heights, to give you that power and the vigor that you need. All right? Okay. Now, this lady, this daughter said, says, for even the sake of one of these dharmas, should one be willing to renounce one's bodies even for countless eons, how much more so for the sake of many of them? So she said, I shall give you whatever you require, all right? But she said, you don't have to do all these horrible things to yourself. But her condition is that she wants to go along, because she wants to plant wholesome roots, and she wants the same things that our Bodhisattva wants. So this is cue for then Chakra to reveal himself, and then he praised our Bodhisattva. He says, in the past, also the Tathagatas have had... Excuse me. Hold on a second. He says, the Buddhas as well have had such a great desire for the Dharma, and it was that which helped them to know full enlightenment and to gain the precious jewel of the Dharma. After they had first course in the course of a Bodhisattva and asked questions about the perfection of wisdom and skill it means. I have no need for your heart, blood, or marrow, he reveals. I only came here to test you. He says, now he gives him a reward. He said, now choose a boon. I shall give you any boon, whatever. Boon means a reward. Ask and you shall receive. It's like you rub the lamp and the genie comes out and gives you 3 wishes. Chakra is doing that right now. Now, what's I going to say? So what does this mean? It means the Bodhisattva lets nothing get in his way between him and the Dharma. His Bodhi resolve is so strong that there is nothing that can prevent him from obtaining the Dharma. And that's how you become a Buddha. Oh, let me see. Can someone say something? Something happened just now and I'm not sure if I'm still online.
You're still, I can hear your voice.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks. My windows just closed just now. Yeah, okay, hold on. Let me get back. Okay, so what did our Bodhisattva ask for? He says, give me the supreme dharmas of a Buddha. Okay, I mean, show me how to become a Buddha. Then Chakra says, that lies not within my province. That means I can't do that, but within the province of the Buddhas. The Buddhas, typo there. Say, choose, make another wish. Then the Bodhisattva say, do not trouble your mind about the mutilated condition of my body. I shall myself now make it whole again by the magical power of my enunciation of the truth. He's going to make a declaration of truth. As I am in truth irreversible, that means his body resolve is irreversible, have been predicted to full enlightenment and am known to the Tathagatas by my unconquerable resolution. May through this truth, through my utterance of the truth, this body of mine be again as it was before. That means he wants, through this declaration of truth, his body will be restored. And that very moment, instant and second, couldn't be more precise, through the Bodhisattva's might and through the perfect purity of the Bodhisattva's resolution, his body became whole again. And not just that, he humbled Chakra, both Chakra and Mara. They were reduced to silence and they just vanished from the place. They had nothing. They realized they were out of their depth. This is someone who is far greater than them. And they just left. They nothing to say at all. Yeah. So now the daughter, the merchant's daughter, told him, he said, come to my house, and there they will be able to get money from her parents, and then he can fulfill whatever he will be able to how you say, express his desire to worship that perfection of wisdom and honor, pay his respects to his future teacher. Okay. So then when they went back to the parents' house, not only did the parents agree to give them however much money they wanted, but the parents also said they wanted to follow along. All right. So now our Bodhisattva had an entourage. Then not just the parents, but the daughter, because they were a merchant family, they were very rich apparently, and she had 500 maidens. They all went to where his future teacher was. Let me see. Okay, hold on. Let me see how many more slides there are. How do I see? Okay, hold on. Okay, what time is it? It's 10 past 10. Okay, because I have another very interesting story for you all. I think I should be able to make it. Okay. This very interesting story is very interesting because it is very, very applicable to normal people like us. Okay, so we may think that, a declaration of truth is only reserved for people like the Bodhisattva Sadaprarudita, who is, at a far higher level of practice than we are. That's not true. Okay, and we shall discover that. Hopefully I have enough time. Okay, now, they found his future teacher because he had at that time created for the perfection of wisdom a pointed tower, and this sounds like a description of the Pure Land, made of the 7 precious jewels, adorned with red sandalwood, encircled by an ornament of pearls. And then gems were placed into the 4 corners of the pointed tower and performed the functions of lamps. Imagine that. Precious jewels acting as lamps. 4 incense jars made of silver were suspended on its 4 sides, and pure black elderwood was burning in them, all as a token of worship for the perfection of wisdom. All right, so very nice place. And in the middle of that pointed tower, there was a couch made of the 7 precious things, and on it a box made of 4 large gems. Into that, the perfection of wisdom was placed, written with melted Vaidurya on golden tablets. And that pointed tower was adorned with brightly colored garlands which hung down in strips. In other words, there's a sutra, and that's all that was to house the sutra. Okay. They saw thousands of gods with chakra, chief of gods, scattering over their pointed tower, heavenly mandrava flowers, heavenly sandalwood powder, etc., etc. They were the gods were making offerings to the sutra. And then the Bodhisattva asked Chakra why they were making offerings. And then Shaka replied, "Do you not know the reason, son of good family?" Well, he was silent earlier. Now he he asked, he says, "Don't you know? This is the perfection of wisdom, the mother and guide of the Bodhisattvas. When Bodhisattvas train in it, they soon reach the perfection of wisdom of all qualities, and consequent on that, all the excuse me, all the dharmas of a Buddha and the knowledge of all modes." Then our Bodhisattva says, "Where is this perfection of wisdom, the mother and guide of the Bodhisattva?" And then Shaka says, "It is in the middle of the tower, and they can't show it to him." So our Bodhisattva and his entourage, together with the offerings, and then now because he has money and has this rich family coming with him, they brought many offerings, okay, and they put their offerings in front of it to honor his future teacher. And then they further worship him by scattering flowers. They played heavenly music on their instruments. And then they thought to themselves, "It is wonderful to see how much wonder-working power this Bodhisattva Dharma Gata possesses. How great a might, how great an influence. Even on the course of a Bodhisattva, he already possesses so much power to work wonders." So he's not a Buddha yet, but he is able to do all these things. How much more will he have after he has known full enlightenment? Of one mind, excuse me, they resolutely set upon supreme enlightenment and said, "May we, through this wholesome route, become Buddhas in the future period. May we come to cause in the course of Bodhisattvas," that means walk the path of Bodhisattvas. Like some of you have taken the Bodhisattva precepts, yeah, like that. "And may we receive those very dharmas which this Bodhisattva Dhammogata has received." And then now, the Bodhisattva Dhammogata replies, says, "Buddhas certainly do not..." Oh, okay, sorry. Let me go back to... Okay, so after this, the our Bodhisattva comes face to face with his teacher, and then he asks the teacher his question. He says, from where do Buddhas come from, and from where do they go? All right. So the answer is said, "Tathagata certainly do not come from anywhere, nor do they go anywhere, because suchness does not move." Suchness meaning the state of the Buddha, and the Tathagata is suchness. Non-production does not come nor go, and the Tathagata is non-production. One cannot conceive of the coming or going of the reality limit, and the Tathagata is the reality limit. The same can be said of emptiness, of what exists in accordance with fact, of dispassion, of stopping of the elements of space. For the Tathagata is not outside these dharmas. What are these dharmas? Of emptiness, of dispassion, they are unconditioned dharmas. All right. Unconditioned means does not depend on anything. They exist in and of by itself. Whereas our very existence is conditioned. Our existence in samsara is conditioned. Our body is conditioned by many things. Everything is conditioned. But the state of the Buddha is unconditioned. So it says the suchness of these dharmas and the suchness of all dharmas and the suchness of the Tathagata or the Buddha are simply this one single suchness. There is no division within suchness. Okay, this kind of language is on course for any prajna, any sutra from the prajna family or from the wisdom family. Then he provides an example. He says, "A man scorched by the heat of the summer during the last month of summer at noon might see a mirage floating along and might run towards it and think, 'There I shall find some water, there I shall find something to drink.' Then he asks, 'What do you think, son of good family?'" That means he's asking the Bodhisattva, Has that water come from anywhere, or does that water go anywhere to the Eastern Ocean or the Southern, Northern, or Western Ocean? Then our Bodhisattva says, well, it's a mirage. There's no water at all. So how can it come? How can it even be conceived? Because it doesn't exist in the first place. So it says, that man again is foolish and stupid if on seeing the mirage he forms the idea of water where there is no water. Water in its own being certainly does not exist in that mirage. Okay, all right. Now, Dhammogata says, equally foolish are all those who adhere to the Tathagata through form and sound, and who in consequence imagine the coming or going of a Tathagata. For a Tathagata cannot be seen from his form body. The bodies are the Tathagata. I think there's a typo. It should be the Dharma bodies of the Tathagata, and the real nature of Dharma does not come and go. Okay, what they're trying to say, okay, the logic behind this is saying that why the Buddha does not come and go is because the Buddha lies beyond what our mind can conceive. Because our mind lives in duality, coming and going, black and white, right, wrong. It's conditioned. All right. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. So the Prajna texts are trying to point to a way of existence that's outside of our conscious mind, of a sixth consciousness, of the concepts and logic and inferences and the imagination and whatever way the mind works. It lies outside our sixth consciousness. All right? That's what it's trying to say. It means that as long as we remain within our conscious mind, we are unable to grasp the true nature of the Buddhas. That's all it's trying to say. Okay? So the language can sometimes be confusing, but what he's trying to say is that it's like when you dream. When you dream, you don't know what being awake is like because you think you're already awake, right? But when you awake, when you awaken, then you realize, oh, it was all a dream. It was such a confused state of being. Same thing. All right? When in our conditioned state right now, we are unable to fathom the true state of the Buddha. So that's why Bodhisattva Dhammagata says, there is no coming or going of the body of an elephant, horse, chariot, or foot soldier which has been conjured up by a magician. That means a mirage. Why? Because our perception of the Buddha is not of the true Buddha, but a mirage in our mind. That's the only way we can interface with the world around us. If you read Abhidharma, which is Buddhist psychology from the Theravada school, you very quickly realize that our interpretation of life is mind only, consciousness only. It's not real. The first instance is real, but then the mind appropriates it. If you read the Heart Sutra, the Prajna, the Heart Sutra, Shufu explains it from the first sense contact onwards. Everything else is a shadow. It's appropriation of something that exists only in our mind. We project onto reality, and it's the projection that we have, not reality itself. All right. So that's why Bodhisattva Dhammagata says, just so there is neither coming nor going of the Tathagatas. A sleeping man might in his dreams see one Tathagata or two or three or up to 1,000 or still more. All right. On waking up, he would, however, no longer see even one single Buddha. What do you think? Son of a good family, have those Buddhas come from anywhere or gone to anywhere? So our Bodhisattva says, one cannot conceive that in that dream any Dharma at all had the status of a full and perfect reality, for the dream was deceptive. But when you're dreaming, you think it's real. That's a problem. All right? Right now, we think that everything that happens to our mind is real. That's our problem right now. So the Bodhisattva Dhammagota says, just so, the Tathagata has taught that all dhammas are like a dream. There you go. All those who do not wisely know all dhammas as they really are, which is like a dream, as the Buddha has pointed out, they adhere to the Buddhas through their name body and their form body, and in consequence, they imagine that the Buddhas come and go. Alright? Now, those in their ignorance of the true nature of dhammas imagine a coming or going of the Buddhas. They are just foolish, common people. At all times, they belong to birth and death with its 6 places of rebirth, and they are far from the perfection of wisdom, far from the dhammas of a Buddha. However, those who know all dhammas as like a dream, in agreement with the teaching of the Buddha, do not imagine the coming or going of any dharma, nor its production or stopping. Why? Because it's all only in our mind. All right. They wisely know the Buddha and his true nature. They cause near to full enlightenment, and they do not consume their alms fruitlessly, and they are worthy of the world's gifts. Okay, let me see. Okay, because this slide and okay, we don't need that slide. The conclusion, actually this is a very long chapter, but in conclusion, our Bodhisattva became endowed with inconceivable learning and a sacred knowledge vast like the ocean. In all his births, he never again was deprived of the Buddha. He was reborn only where he could be face to face with the Buddhas. He had abandoned all unfortunate rebirths, that means no longer in the hell realm, animal realm, or the hungry ghost realm, and had secured the circumstances which allowed him to accomplish one auspicious rebirth after another. At the bare minimum, he was a stream enterer, because stream enterers also do not fall into the lower realms anymore. Okay, so there you go. That's our Bodhisattva. All right, 5 minutes. Oh no, 6-7 minutes. Okay, good. That means I have enough time to share this very interesting story with you. Let me see. Okay, this story is from the Jataka tale, number 444. It's the name is what? Kanhadipayana Jataka, and this was told by the Buddha himself. Okay, so before we go into the story, right, you need to know who are the actors, not actors. What's another word for characters in the story? Character? Yeah. Who are the characters in our story? Okay, you have 2 ascetics. Ascetic number 1, ascetic number 2, and then you have 3 others, which is a family, father, mother, and son. Okay, and then at the end of this story, as customary in the Jataka tale, I will reveal who these people are, because that's what the Buddha does in the Jataka tale. Okay, so some backstory. Ascetic number 1, okay, was falsely accused of theft. Because why? A thief had stolen something, and as he was escaping, he was going to get caught. So he threw the bag of stolen goods outside a house, or like a kuti, like a little hut. And that was the hut of ascetic number 1. So when the people saw the bag of goods, they thought that he was the thief. So they caught him, they brought him to the king, and the king, without doing any investigation whatsoever, very rashly, he said, okay, we have to punish this person by death of impalement. Impalement means you get stuck. So he ordered the executioner to impale this poor ascetic. So they tried wood, they tried all kinds of sharp instruments, but they could not break the ascetic's skin. So the ascetic was very puzzled. He was like, what's going on? So he looked into his past lives. He looked into his memories, and then he realized in the past life, when he was a child, he actually he did a very evil deed. He took a splinter of ebony which is very hard wood, like for piano keys. Yeah, ivory and ebony, the black part of traditional piano keys. And with that splinter, he pierced a fly. So he said, oh, now I understand why. So he told the executioner, he said, you will only be able to pierce me if you use a stake made of ebony. And true enough, they sourced a sharp stake of ebony, and they will manage to pierce ascetic number one. So they left him hanging by the roadside. Now, we introduce ascetic number two. Ascetic number two are friends with ascetic number one. So ascetic number two decided to see how his friend was doing. So he went to see his friend, but instead found as his friend ascetic number one impaled hanging by the roadside. So he asked ascetic number one, he said, what's going on? What did you do? Ascetic number one said, well, he did nothing wrong and he was wrongly accused, and he explained everything to ascetic number two. And he also said that he did not feel any hatred towards his accusers or to the king to wrongly sentence him. So ascetic number two, hearing this from his friend, was very pleased. He said, oh, my friend has a lot of virtue, and said that, you know, for such a virtuous person, even their shadow would be delightful. In this reference, there's a reference in the sutras that says that if you have any, no, one of the Buddha's disciple, there was a bird who was scared of the Buddha's shadow, something like that. And then the Buddha said, if you don't kill, then even your shadow will be pleasing to birds, something like that. Yeah. So anyway, our friend, ascetic number two, said that, oh, for such a virtuous person, even their shadow will be delightful. So he sat down next to his poor ascetic number one who was impaled there, and remained there in the night. And he wasn't even bothered by the drops of blood that fell upon his skin. Don't ask me why ascetic number two didn't try to help ascetic number one. The story doesn't say anything. Okay. Anyway, the king heard about this, and so the king rushed, because the king said, oh, why has another ascetic done this? So the king rushed to the place and was scolded by ascetic number two for his rash decision. Then, so the king, in remorse, ordered the stake to be removed. But just as other stakes could not pierce the Bodhisattva's skin, now this stake could not be pulled out of him. And then the Bodhisattva was also puzzled. And then it was because in his previous life, when he pierced the fly with the ebony splinter, he left it there and he didn't remove it until the fly died. So which is now why the stake could not be removed. So the king had both ends of the stake that was protruding up from the Bodhisattva's body to be sawed off, and then the middle part remained in his body. Okay, now we move to the second part of the story, okay, which is actually the whole point of the story. But the Jataka tales are like that, they are a bit windy. Okay, so now ascetic number two, okay, took care of the ascetic number one because he was pardoned by the king already. And when his friend's wound was healed, okay, now he took care of his friend. Then he went to the family's home because he also knew the family. And he went to the family's home of the father, the mother, and the son. He began telling them what had happened between him and ascetic number one. So as the family was listening to the Bodhisattva, because it was a very interesting story, they didn't notice that there was a snake nearby, and their poor young son was bitten by the snake. It was a venomous snake, and the boy fell unconscious. So the parents then asked the ascetic number two to heal him. But the ascetic said he doesn't know any magical mantras, so he doesn't know how, he cannot heal the boy. So he said, okay, well, you're an ascetic, why don't you speak an act of truth? Okay, speak an act of truth to save our son. You all got that? Okay, now, so what does the ascetic do? This is his declaration of truth. He says, I was happy as a hermit only for the first 7 days. Okay, but he's been a hermit for very long. How long? 50 years. He says, after that, for 50 years, I have lived a holy life unhappily. Yet, in order that nobody may know of my unhappiness, he doesn't want to lose face. He doesn't want anyone to know. And he doesn't he doesn't want people to think that he has backslided, go against his decision. So he endured homelessness for 50 years. He says, I've never deviated from the holy path. Because of this true statement, may the child be cleared of poison and restored to life. And then after this, it is said that the venom came out from the boy's chest. Then upon this, the boy regained consciousness but was unable to move. So this ascetic's declaration of truth was not strong enough. Okay, it worked, but not all the way. Now, then so this ascetic told the father, it's your turn now. Now you must also make a declaration of truth. All right? Okay, so the father did that. The father, what was his declaration of truth? Okay, he says, I provided alms to monks only because my father and grandfather did so. But I do it reluctantly as I have no faith in giving, the holy life, and in monks. By the power of this truth, may the rest of the poison leave my son. And as he said this, the poison came out from the boy's back. And then now the boy could sit up but was still weak and couldn't stand. All right. What the father said was this. He didn't believe in the cause and effect of giving, number one. And number two, he didn't respect the Dharma or the holy life. At that time wasn't the Dharma yet, at this during this particular life. But he didn't respect the ascetics. And he only did it because his grandfather did it, his father did it, so he felt obligated to keep up with appearances. Because what kind of son would he be if he didn't follow in the traditions of his family? Yeah. But, well, he confessed, and it worked. Then, now it was the mother's turn. And then the mother said, actually, I don't love my husband. I was forced into marriage and I only agreed for the sake of my family's happiness. her family who forced her to marry. He says, I have remained faithful only because it is the tradition of my family and for fear of my reputation. In other words, she didn't leave the husband and she didn't find another partner because she didn't want to be slandered. He says, by the power of this truth, may my son be well. And at this, any remaining poison in the boy was purged, and the boy got up and started to play like it was normal. So, declarations of truth does not need to be, very outstanding, okay? But I guess in the case of the ascetic as well as the parents, it was outstanding in their case because it's not easy to confess in that way. Let me ask you all, what does this sound like? This is a Mahayana practice. Can you all guess what this practice is? Anyone?
Repentance.
Yes. Okay. Now we have the repentance part. Okay. Now we come to the reform part. So I hope that from now on, when any one of you perform the repentance ceremonies, you have a different understanding to the efficacy of repentance. Okay. This is one perspective of it. So after this happened, all right, after they confess things that are very hard for them to confess, these are things that people would take to their graves. Okay, or they would have taken to their graves. After this, the husband forgave the wife. And after the husband forgave the wife, the husband said, you don't have to fear anything. I'm not going to retaliate against you. Don't worry. And then then the ascetic number 2 told the father, he says, you, in disbelieving that when you give liberally, the deed has cause and effect, this you was wrong on your part. That means you did not believe in the cause and effect of giving. It says, for the future, you have to believe in the merit of gifts and continue giving them. That means he advised the father in this way. And then the father in turn told the ascetic, okay, he says, sir, you too have done yourself wrong in accepting our gifts when you walk the path of holiness against your will. That means you're not sincere, but yet you still receive alms. It says, now in order that your deeds may bear abundant fruit, in the future you have to walk the path with a tranquil heart and pure, full of ecstatic joy. And then after being forgiven by her husband, the grace shown to her, the wife loved her husband, and then the father, the husband, managed to develop a proper heart of giving. And then the ascetic number 2 managed to find his resolve or his sincerity, and he learned how to cultivate walk the path with happiness, and he planted the seeds to be reborn in the Brahma heavens. Okay, so that's the reform part. So you have repentance and reform. Okay, but as you can see, it's not easy because you have to be very, very honest with yourself. And it's not just with yourself. In this case, they had witnesses, So what you can do is you can start in front of the Buddha and see how it goes. So now, okay, at this part of the story, then the Buddha reveals who was who. It says, okay, ascetic number 1 was Shariputra, is now Shariputra. He says he himself, the Buddha, was ascetic number 2. Okay, and then the father was Ananda, the wife was Visakha. Visakha is known as the Buddha's chief female patron. Anatta Pindika was chief patron of men, and on the woman's side is Visakha, and their son was Rahula, which is the Buddha's son. Yeah, so that's this story. Okay, I have gone beyond time. I'm sorry. At this moment, at this time, does anyone have any questions? Any clarifications? Anyone? No? Not confusing at all? Okay, maybe I guess I'm a good storyteller. Okay, now we can transfer merit. There's my slides. No questions at all? Anyone? Okay. Oh, I have a question. Has anyone tried the method for sleeping? Does it work? Nobody? Can you all hear me?
I hear you, Pastor.
Okay, all right. One of these days I'll get a response. Oh, I did get a response today. Ron had a question and Peggy answered a question. Okay. All right. Very good. Now, dedication of merit. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow, second bow, third bow, half bow. Bowing respect to the Realm Master. Second bow, third bow, half bow. Okay, everyone. Amitofo, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dharma Master.